And go, Daniel. I'm recording.
We're recording already?
Go. It's all you. You're in the spotlight.
When you're put in the spotlight, that
You're
it makes
in
things really difficult.
The
all of a sudden.
spotlight, and not the spotlight or headlights of a car, because that wouldn't be good, but the spotlight.
Yeah.
You're in God's
feel
spotlight right now.
I feel like when you know that you're on camera or like recording or anything like that, like all of a sudden you become like 10 times more awkward. Like I noticed that like when trying to do like recording and footage, like trying to make hunting shows. Hunting cam. It's like as soon as you turn the camera on and point it at yourself and you could see yourself in the camera, it just made you say really dumb things
Wait,
that you would have never said before.
wait, you tried to do a hunting show?
Yeah, you ever seen those?
No, wait, hold on.
I've actually have a couple that I've made 2 different years. I think they were like half an hour to 45-minute episodes.
What?
That I recorded footage on throughout the whole season. Not just me, my dad did too. He actually bought a camera around the same time I bought my camera, so we could do this together. We bought microphones and all that kind of setup, and with the intention that we were going to record the whole hunting season, and at the end of it, I was going to collect all the footage and video. And I tried making like a platform of how I wanted to do it. You see a lot of hunting shows will do like a day by day. Kind of like, this is what's going on, this is what we're seeing, just kind of like a overview of what they're going to do or what they saw, depending on what they did in the morning or if they did in the evening.
Well, 2 questions on that. Then number 1, where is all that equipment now? And number 2, was it like that video that I saw of like, or was it the hunting trip that I saw that one time?
You probably saw one of them. It was one of the hunting trips. And then most of the equipment is kind of just spread out. Like I got some of my tripods and stuff here. I think I have my main camera here, which really wasn't a good camera. I think it was like a cheap camcorder. I think it was like $300 or something like that. And that came with the kit, like the bag and a cheap tripod and things like that. And then I upgraded to like better tripods, better gear after that. Like I got a good Rode mic and a nice tripod from what was that? Atlas, I think is what the brand was.
Atlas?
Like
Never heard of that.
I think it was Atlas.
Huh.
I gotta double check now. Gotta check. Nope, that's
Or
that.
Canon, or Nikon.
Nikon.
Nikon. Actually, you're saying the tripod, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know those brands. Maybe it's like tripod.
I'm sorry, it was Vanguard.
It's triple legs.
It was Vanguard Alta was what the one I got was. I can't remember which model I got.
So where's that right now?
That is in the trunk of my black car, I believe. So I'm glad that I didn't get towed the other day.
Yeah. What did we spend an hour shoveling that snow?
Yeah. For anybody that be listening, but I have a black car that is parked on the roadside of our new house, and I did not realize that when you have snow and plows that you get piled up, that it is legal to have your car not moved in 48 hours. So I had a warning dash a ticket, both technically. They gave me a warning and ticket at the same time. On my window of my car saying that it had to be dug out and I had a $20 ticket. And they would tow it away. And I think it was like 48 hours if it was not moved.
Wait, so it actually was a ticket?
I guess I jumped the gun. I'm pretty sure it's a ticket. I have to take it in and have to look at it. I still don't know.
You have a limited time, bro.
It says 30 days. Well, 30 days and then I get a bigger penalty.
Yeah, I didn't like those penalties, man. Those penalties look scary to me.
Yeah. But yeah, it's it it was an interesting experiment because we both, to get back on the video creation, we both recorded several hunting seasons. We actually did this. We actually still do this. I just haven't really got back into it and collected the footage, mainly because the last 2 years were, I wouldn't say necessarily bad years. This year was a bad year. 2018 was a bad year because we had a fire close to the area we hunt, and a lot of smoke was blown all the way up the valleys and for miles and miles. I think it really pushed the animals out. But really, I just haven't had time to really sit down and edit the footage it took.
So you've taken a crap ton of footage that we haven't seen yet still to this day.
Yeah, I probably have 9 days for each hunting season, so I probably have 2 or 3 seasons worth of footage that I never really got around to editing. I think my third season that I was really gonna edit, because I did 2 full seasons. I edited it, and I think my first season it was the most awkward, mainly because it takes you a minute to really get used to hearing yourself. You know what I mean? Like I think you could probably like.
I hate hearing myself.
Yeah, with hearing like your streams and stuff like that, like it's really awkward hearing yourself talk. Like it doesn't sound the same.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. Like, it's funny. It also kind of depends. Like, it depends on your microphone. Because when you hear yourself on one microphone, it'll sound different than a different microphone, or you hear yourself on one computer, sound different on the other computer. But regardless, all of them sound different than how you sound in your head.
Yeah, it's like a recording on your phone or something like that when you leave a message, and you gotta hear it back if you want or not. And that's how it really was in the beginning. Like it was so awkward. I didn't know how I wanted to present it. I didn't know how I wanted to start it. So I think the first year I did a kind of pre-day. What the plan was. I'd say like this is day 1 on Burnt Mountain, or this is day 1 on Russell Ridge, or something like that, and I'd go and just do this little mini intro every morning, like a 1.5-minute intro of what day it was, where we were going to be at, what we had seen the night previously, and then just end it with this kind of awkward we'll see where it goes from there kind of thing. Like it was just such a weird feeling, like seeing yourself in the camera and then trying to rewatch it, see if your sound wasn't even coming through. And the camera I had such a small screen that a lot of the footage when I was trying to capture videos of animals moving through out 300, 400 yards, I would zoom in because my camera had an optical zoom of I can't remember if it was 30 or 40 or something like that, and then a digital zoom of higher or vice versa. I can't remember which one comes first, but whatever it came down to, my camera would fuzz out. It would get really blurry.
Oh,
if you zoomed in anything past, I think it was like 20 times or something like that. If it was anything past that 20 to 25 times zoom, it would just start blurring out and it wouldn't focus itself. And you didn't know that because your lens is so small on that camera that it looked like it was clear to the lens you're looking through. But as soon as you got it home and put it on the computer and blew it up and started watching it, it was just so fuzzy. It was so bad you couldn't even use half of it.
How much footage would you say that you lost? Like, not necessarily just due to fuzziness, but like, let's say, for example, you set up your stuff, you were doing like an entire day's worth of recording, and then when you got home, through the computer, boom, there was no sound. Or
I don't think I ever ran into the no sound issue. I think my biggest issue was definitely the fuzz and blurry pictures and images. The second main problem I had would be like I had very limited amount of batteries. I think I had 3 for the whole season, and we were trying to charge them on a solar panel, which actually worked decently if there was enough sun around throughout the day. We could actually get all our cameras charged up in the evening and then have 3 batteries, to go into the next day. But I've run into the problem a lot where I would probably have been a lot more footage, talking to the camera, getting used to the camera, and doing that kind of thing. But you would get down and be like, say you wasted a battery and a half, and you only had one battery left, and start thinking ahead of, okay, well, if we see animals and I need to bring out the camera and start recording all these animal footages, or if we have something that was going to come in that we were going to be able to take a shot at, or if someone knocked something down, you didn't have time to charge anything, and you want to be able to get footage of the main thing that a lot of people that are watching hunting shows want to see is the actual animals harvested themselves, and then all the butchering afterwards.
The action, though.
The action, yeah, you could call it that. I mean, filming it, I had just as much fun filming just all of the animals. Like, every time you saw anything, it was exciting because it gave you something to do. Like, you weren't just standing there anymore. You actually got to go and get your camera out. You'd set up your tripods. You capture all this footage. I actually captured quite a bit of footage of things that was really neat to come back and, like, watch later. Say, like, a year down the road, 2 years down the road, you find that footage again. And be like, that was really cool that I caught that. I actually caught a couple of deer. It was like a young, like, little 2-point, and then an older 3 or 4-point, and a doe that were close to the rut, close to the mating season, but obviously not close enough to where she was going to, like, have any of it. But the little buck just wanted to play, and the big buck was just getting really annoyed at him. And so the little buck was just, like, jumping around the big buck. And I think I caught a lot of that on footage. I think some of it was blurry because, again, I think it was my first year. When I was doing it now, I think a lot of that was blurry. But I still caught some of it. It wasn't blurry, and that was pretty neat.
With my luck, if I tried something like that, I'd get like a squirrel that would like walk up, like take a crap, flip me off, and then walk away.
Yeah. Well, there's those times. Even if the squirrel doesn't flip you off, it kind of feels like it sometimes. You'd like be sitting there, and it's like dead quiet, and all of a sudden you get this one squirrel or like a woodpecker or something like that. It just happens to like the tree that you're sitting behind.
What's the most common like animal do you even like that you see out there? Would it be a squirrel?
On a regular basis, I would say probably the animal you see most would probably have to be
rabbits.
No, I was gonna say
gorillas. Well, I guess
grouse. Probably grouse. We probably see grouse every day. It would be up to grouse or chipmunks. Probably actually chipmunks. We see chipmunks every day. They're all over the place up there, running around.
Isn't a grouse like a bird?
Yeah. Yep.
What about a swallow?
That's a bird.
No, I mean like. How do you know it's a grouse? Like, you're just, I've seen grouse all my life. Like, I know it's a grouse.
Yeah, it kind of comes down to that. It's one of those things like, you know what a chicken is. It's like, of course I know what a chicken is. Like, you've seen chickens, you know what they look like. I guess more wild birds that you would find more, like, hunting purposes wise. That a lot of people probably don't know the difference between, like, grouse and pheasants and quail and all that kind of stuff. Well, it really just comes down to being around it. It's just one of those things that you kind of are grown up in, I guess. Or if you're an outdoorsy person who does a lot of hiking and sees those, and then you kind of get curious and you look them up. I guess that'd be another way to kind of get into it. But don't get me wrong, I still get, not that I get them confused and I don't know what they are, but I get them confused. Like I'll be talking about one bird when I actually mean the other. Like I say, I'm talking about grouse when I'm actually saw a pheasant or something like that. So I don't pretend to be a freaking bird expert.
Can you eat grouse? I mean, you can eat anything, but can you eat grouse? Like, is that like a hunting thing?
Grouse is delicious. Tastes like chicken. A lot of things taste like chicken, and actually, it doesn't taste like chicken, but it's a bird. It's a bird meat.
You've killed grouse.
I have killed grouse. I've killed grouse. I've killed pheasants. I think the only game bird I have not personally gone out and hunted would be quail.
What about pheasant?
That's it. I've hunted grouse and I've hunted pheasants. I have not hunted quail.
No, I didn't know that you'd hunted pheasants. I thought that was kind of new to you since you came to North Dakota.
Oh, no. We have a lot of pheasants in Washington.
What? I've never seen a pheasant in my life in Washington.
It's we do have them in Eastern Washington. They're not crazy abundant, but they are there in a lot of places. you'll find them typically more up into the mountains. Like if you went up into like Mount Rainier National Park, not like high up, just in the park, or even some of the other local mountains, even up in like my grandparents' area, up in the Scott Turner area. There's grouse up there.
I feel like I would have noticed a bird that jumps in front of cars quite frequently in Washington.
I feel like they're not as dumb in Washington, but they also might just be there's not as flat. I think they stay off the roads pretty well.
Yeah, they're pretty obvious out here. Like even when they think that they're hiding, they're not hiding.
Yeah, I think they're also a lot more abundant out here in North Dakota. These flat, grassy lands. I think the ones we see in Washington are usually more in the mountains and stuff.
We have to go shoot geese at some point.
We've been talking about that. In fact, I actually called Dean the other day, and I was telling him about asking him questions about the position that Dad got hired onto, and he actually brought it up. He was talking about wanting to go out and do some hunting, and he says he knows a guy. I guess one of his bosses that either owns or knows someone with land in Montana. And he said he's working on getting that connection so we can all go.
Are they Canadian geese? Or are they just like geese? Because we are right next to Canada.
That's a question that I'm not smart enough to know. I'm pretty sure they're Canadian geese. I'm not even positive about all the geese types. This is a topic that we're going to sound really stupid on if we go into it.
Well, the geese that you guys had at your parents' house most certainly were not Canadian geese. They were like white. Their feathers looked like garbage.
Those were oh man,
they were motley looking things.
Those are mean geese. I think they're
they were mean geese.
They were mean geese. They aren't always mean, but they can be mean. I think it's more when they start having babies and stuff, they get pretty aggressive. But yeah, I forget the name of those. Those aren't wild geese though. I don't think you would find those in the wild anywhere around here. Those are all like basically like cows. They're bred in captivity for certain purposes. And don't ask what those purposes are, because I don't think we eat their. I mean, some people might, but we never ate their eggs or anything like that. They're almost like lawn ornaments.
Yeah, those ones were like an animal that I could see coming up to you and flipping you off and then walking away. Like those things were mean, dude. Like I didn't even do anything to them. They'd always be like,
chase you around.
They'd always be like, you stepping, bruh? You stepping? I'm like,
yeah.
No, I'm trying to get inside the house. Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
but anyway, it was weird. Getting back on the topic, it was a very interesting thing to try to come over with the whole recording yourself and seeing your own footage. And I got to a point where you almost couldn't think about it, because looking at yourself is weird enough as it is, right? So you hear your own voice, that sounds weird. And then trying to show your work to anybody, especially family. Was also weird, because you felt like every single little thing you said just sounded dumb, like you were trying to be some sort of actor. And that wasn't what I was trying to do. I wasn't trying to be an actor. I was just trying to sound more talk showy, I guess. Like when you're watching these hunting shows.
You were trying to talk about interesting things, or things that interested you that other people would also be interested in.
Exactly. You're trying to sound professional. You're trying to sound like this isn't unnatural for you. And it's funny because it's 100% unnatural to you when you very first start out. It feels very awkward and weird. But you're trying not to show that in the camera, which I actually think makes it worse. I do. I think if you really, once you get in front of the camera long enough, once you get on recordings long enough, or you stream long enough, or whatever the case may be, you almost start forgetting about it. Because I think in the long run, I think when people actually start listening to you, actually start watching you, even family, if they watch you on a regular basis, gets to a certain point where you're not trying as hard anymore. You're not trying to sound this part that's not really you, kind of thing.
No, that makes sense. I honestly would be more worried, more concerned about if I had like a giant booger just hanging out of my nose, like for half of it, and I'm just like, well, I can't use that footage.
Well, that's the benefit though of doing it all yourself though, because you record all your own footage. It would suck if you had to lose some footage from that, but you could record and edit all your own footage, as I was, and then you could kind of decide what sounded kind of weird, what sounded okay.
So first step of business, when when we become successful one day, I would say we'll get a guy that we can just yell over our shoulder after each cut that we don't like, and just be like edit that out, cut that out, cut that out.
We can do that now. Just act like someone was there. Just give him a fake name, just be like, Steve. Make sure you cut that part out. We didn't like that.
Yeah, Steve, give me an angel halo around my head when I say something really just magnificent or glorious. Give me the beam of light.
Just like, Steve, can you throw in a good beat there? I want some sound music laid over that. It'd be great.
And if anything's just crap, just be like, damn it, Steve. What? Yeah. What were you thinking? That is a pay cut. That is a pay cut.
We're gonna have to get rid of Steve. We're gonna get somebody else.
Yeah, we'll get Steve 2.0. Or just everyone we hire from then on, we'll also call Steve. Even if it's a woman, even if it's a woman, just Steve.
Yeah. That could work. I mean, that would be funny.
It'd be good. I mean, I don't know. I'm really starting to take to the idea in the 30 seconds we've been speaking about it. And in fact, I like Steve. Steve.
Yeah, you like Steve? That's a good name.
That is a good name.
We should keep Steve.
we should keep Steve.
All right, Steve, we're keeping you. I like you.
Yeah, all right, Steve. Throw an arm around you.
As long as you do good.
As long as you do good, don't anger us. You wouldn't like us when we're angry.
But that's my editing platform. What I didn't have a lot of it. Like I said, it's probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years worth of footage that I picked up. 3 got actually edited into videos. Then one.
Didn't Brandon do one? Did Brandon use one of yours?
Brandon just recently this year, because we were doing that, and this has been a thing we've been doing for the last probably going on 5 years now. And like I said, we have been recording every year, and we haven't done it as hard as we used to. But it's gotten pretty, I don't know what the word is. It's just gotten to a point where it's so much work. It really is, to pack all the gear up that we need to just be able to eat and all that kind of stuff for a 9-day trip on the mountain, where you're not going down to stores, you're not going shopping or any of that. It's everything that you're going to use for 9 days has to come up with you. Basically the first thing, at least to our base camp, and then you bring everything else you need up to your mid camp that you're going to use for the next couple of days, and then you come back down to that base camp and bring up a couple of extra things, maybe bring down some dirty clothes, that kind of thing.
Is that why you were looking at dried food or something there, or what is it called?
Dehydrated food.
Dehydrated food.
Yes, that's actually one of the main reasons. To get into a kind of just off topic kind of thing, several years ago we basically we had a big rainstorm. On top of that, we had a lot of melt off from the mountains. We had a lot of snow up there, and a lot of melt off happened. I think it had a heavy rain around the same time, so we had all this water that just washed out of Colford over the main road that we would get into, and it's not a public. It is a public road, but it's not what I'm looking for, a main highway. It's a gravel road. It's really maintained by the Forest Service mostly, and a logging company. And the logging company doesn't use that anymore. It's an old road. They don't use it ever. But the Forest Service ran out of money. They didn't have money to fix the culvert, so they just said, we're just not going to fix it. Anybody who wants to go up there can walk up there. Basically, that's what they went through. So we used to be able to drive right to our base camp. And that changed to where the washout was, which was approximately, I believe if I remember right, it was about 1.5 to 2 miles from where our base camp was down the road. And then where they actually put the culvert, the blockage to keep people from driving up and then running into this culvert, for whatever reason, they decided to put another half mile down the road. So it was actually, I can't remember if it was exactly 2 miles or 2.5 miles of road that you couldn't drive up to base camp, and you had to either walk or use other means to get up there, which at the time was either an ATV or a dirt bike. And at the time when it very first happened, no one knew if you were allowed to do that or not. There was a sign at the base of the road that had a motorized vehicle trail, but the motorized vehicle trail wasn't actually part of the road. It was actually at the very end of the road, past where our hunting camp even is. There is a trail down there for dirt bikes or something like that. And I've never been down there. I don't know exactly how far that goes. So everybody kind of assumed that's what the sign was really meant for. And so driving off the main road, no matter how you looked at it, was technically illegal.
Well,
So we had to walk the 3 miles or 2 miles or whatever it was from where the washout car park area was to our base camp. And then from our base camp, another 1.5 miles into national forest land to get to our mid camp.
but I thought you guys used like 4-wheelers before.
That's kind of been a recent thing. So this was probably, I'm just gonna guess. I'm gonna say probably like 6 years ago now, maybe somewhere in there. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago when this washout happened. It's probably been 2 to 3 years of actual hiking in. We hiked in every year for the last 2 to 3 years. And then after that, we kind of were looking at other means, mainly because we saw a lot of people that they were driving their quads in. People were bringing quads and using them, and no one said anything about getting in trouble about it. A couple people said they had game wardens up talking to them. The game wardens didn't say anything about it. So we decided to take the risk because the hiking up there really isn't that bad. But when you, like I said, when you have to bring all your stuff, and for the last 5 to 6 years we've been doing recording as well. So we're bringing not only clothes for the week, food for the week, we're also packing another probably 20 pounds of camera gear. You know, it just got to be so much to where it was just too heavy to keep all that up. So we tried doing a lot of things. We invested in some nicer hunting gear. That obviously made a big difference. We got a lot lighter load, bringing up more quality gear that you didn't need as much of. We invested in some barrels, some heavy duty barrels. We actually stored in a camp up there that we could put like sleeping pads in, all our cooking wear, like all that kind of stuff. It would just stay up in our camp.
Like for the whole year?
Yeah, it stays up there.
You're not worried that people are gonna like take anything, or I thought you said people went up there before and they were like, oh yeah, like they'd move a few things around. And I guess no one destroyed the camps or anything, but they would
we have it hidden pretty well. Like you would have to really dig to find them.
Oh, okay.
And if they did, I mean, the chances of them really taking nothing up there is of any significant value. Like I said, it's mainly foam pads and old dishes and stuff like that. So if they really want to take it, it would be probably more funny to us than anything else.
Gotcha. And do those barrels like seal up pretty well, or?
Yeah, they do. They're airtight barrels, and that's kind of a funny story in itself. When we very first got those barrels, they were actually delivered from like that Worcester sauce. I think it's an Asian, or is it? I can't even know. It's some sort of food sauce, though. Like I think it was a Worcester sauce, and it smelled so strong, even cleaned out. And we washed the barrels inside. We put baking soda, dish soap, freaking everything we could think of to try to get this smell to like soak out of the plastic. And it didn't matter what we did, man. We would get it cleaned out, and it would smell okay for a couple days. And then you put that lid on, And as soon as you took the lid off, after a little while, that lid on, oh my gosh, it was like being right back in that barrel of Worcester sauce. And all our gear smelled like that.
So the sauce didn't
all
smell
our
good.
pads, our sleeping pads just smelled like Worcester sauce. We started making jokes about bears be coming in because of the smell of Worcester sauce.
Was it at least a good smell?
No, it was very strong. It was basically the kind of Asian-y like sauces you would get on a table if you went to a restaurant.
Oh, okay.
It was a version of some of those. I'm not sure. I think a lot of that stuff isn't Worcester sauce, but it was kind of like that. It had kind of a vinegary smell to it. It wasn't good. It really wasn't. But yeah, no, we just got to a point with the food wise. It was too much to pack all the food because we would bring up a lot of food. We would bring up whole, probably 5 to 6 pounds of hamburger, sometimes more. Sandwich meat, obviously, and cheese, and boxes of different hamburgers. Just tons of different stuff. Just everything we could think of that we'd want for the week. And when you're packing in approximately 5 miles-ish with the road situation in our camp and climbing, I want to say, like around 2,000 feet in elevation. I might be highballing a little bit, but pretty high. We climb a lot. It's pretty steep.
I could see cans of soup like being super heavy.
See, we don't even do that anymore. We used to. But it got to a point where we actually started laughing, like, why are we carrying up this much water weight?
Or baked beans.
Any kind of canned foods used to be brought up, but we got to a point where it's like, it's so heavy. It's so heavy, and then not only do you have to bring it in, you have to pack it out, because we're very anti-garbage littering, especially in national forests. So anything we bring in, beer cans, any kind of cans, tin foil, anything like that we use for cooking, we have a garbage sack that we fill it all up and we bring all that out. So everything you bring in, you have to bring out as well. So it's another thing that you got to think about when you're packing all this weight in. It's like, I also got to pack all this weight out. It may be a little bit lighter, but it's still stuff you have to pack out. And
pack out with the animal that you kill, like with the
with the animal that you're hoping you're getting, exactly. So it's several trips which is, I mean, I know we keep jumping from topic to topic, but it's like, it's such a strange thing because you have this plan built up in your head, right? You have this big plan that you're going hunting. You're having all these different things happen. You're having a good time spending with friends and family. You're suffering in the cold. You have this like momentum and energy and focus to harvest an animal. That's why you're there. You just get to a point where when you finally get what your goal is, you finally harvest an animal. The amount of pain, suffering, and effort that it takes to get that animal out, I ask myself every year, like, why do I do this again? Like, it's
really, I did not think that you would ever ask yourself something like that.
It's funny because it's not a serious question. I don't think. I think we all joke about it. We always like when we finally get something down. You get like that. You get that first quarter in your back or deboned meat pack or whatever, and it's probably a good, I don't know, 50 pounds somewhere in there, which isn't actually as heavy as our normal packs coming in, but it's still heavy.
Well, I could see that question being asked, like, here in North Dakota, working the oil fields, when it's super cold, I'm like, why the hell am I doing this again? Why? So I could definitely see the same thing. Yeah, I could definitely see the effort that you'd have to be putting in. But does that get better with more people though? When I'm like there, I'm there eventually one day on the horizon. A lot.
Like, when we had a couple years where it was just me and my dad, like we didn't have the 4-man group we used to. That was probably some of the hardest hunting we've ever done, but also some of the funnest times I've probably had up there. Well, maybe not funnest, that's probably the wrong word. Probably the most memorable, I should say. when it was just me and my dad hunting, because it was a lot more work, but it was a lot closer work. It's hard to explain. Like I don't know. There's memories there that you probably wouldn't have been made as memorable if like everybody was there, or if the whole group, from the mountain were out helping you and stuff like that.
I feel like you'd definitely focus more on like you're basically by yourself, like not quite, but basically. So it's like everything is that much more detailed because you're worrying about that much more stuff because it's just you and
yeah. And then, I mean, when we have everybody there, though, it's like, we'll put it this way: when you finally get an animal, we're talking about elk for this instance, it would be used to take them in quarters. So instead of deboning all the meat off of them, we'd actually cut them into 4 quarters. You would cut them in halves and then halves again, and you'd actually take out bone and all in a game bag in your pack. And the quarters usually ran somewhere around 40 to 55 pounds, somewhere ballpark. With 2 people, running 2 quarters in one frame pack was very difficult, unless it was a very small elk. So it was basically not really an option. You had to make 2 trips, and then if for whatever reason, say me or my dad happened to have an opportunity at something else that we had to make a play on, it would mean the person whoever harvested the animal actually has to make an extra trip, because that's happened once so far. And most times we would just do the 2 trips together; it would be fine. But basically, you're looking at least 2 trips. So depending on where you harvested the animal at, which is another big, how hard - easy it is to get the animal out. It changes based on where you got it, because that will vary. It makes a huge difference. So if I harvest an animal at the very bottom of the canyon on the back side of the mountain, you have to go down there with all your gear to get it cut up and butchered and whatnot, and then you have to pack that meat all the way back up over the mountain just to get to your camp, and then go back down and do it a second time.
Create a zip line. Create a zip line.
Yeah, pretty much. We've joked about that. But when you have a full group, when you got 4 people up there, it's just 1 trip. You don't have to do that second trip. So it literally cuts the work in half. And if you have more than 4 people, it just lightens the load. It makes it that much easier.
Did you even bother trying to record when it was just you and your dad? Or was that just there was too much going on?
Oh no, actually, I think we did most of when we very first started. It was just me and my dad.
You mean with the recording?
Kind of getting to it. With recording, it was just me and my dad. Yeah.
Because Brandon and Matthew had moved on to other things, or didn't have time. I mean,
Brandon mainly didn't have time, and then Matthew, I think, lost a little bit of interest in it in the beginning, and then he also, when he got older and then started thinking about it again, he also didn't have time. But I think it was more of probably a mix of more interest and time. Because like I always joked about, if you really want to go, you find time. Anything you want to do in life, if you really want something, you find time. You find the money for it. You can. If you want something bad enough, you can figure it out. You know what I mean? So that was always my joke.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I think anybody can make it work if they really want it bad enough.
Mm-hmm. And then there's always obstacles that you can run into. If you literally can't get the time off, they won't let you have that from your work or something like that, or it's a money thing, you cannot afford to go. That changes things, but I don't think any of them were ever in the situation, except maybe Matthew towards later, where he actually had the job he has now. Were ended up buying like that to where they literally could not go, like they would not be able to. I think they always could if they wanted to, but it was more of the reasons not to outweigh the reasons to. And that's completely fine. That's up to every individual. For me, hunting was like life. It was like breathing. I never, ever want to miss hunting. It's like you and the fishing trip. It was not an option. Yeah, I joked about that all the time.
And I've thought, it's come across my mind definitely more than once as I've gotten older, is it worth it to go to the fishing trip in specific situations? I've never missed a year. I'm going on 30. But to get over to Eastern Washington, the time off that I need, and just my biggest fear, is nobody goes to the trip with me. Like, would I go by myself? I probably would. But that wasn't what I grew up doing. I didn't go by myself. I was always dragged by my parents. And I say dragged. I say dragged, but really that's just me being taken with them. I don't mean like, oh, I hated going or something like that. It just every year I was taken there, and I loved it. And that's what I wanted for my family. I mean, I'm trying to incorporate you guys into it too because I enjoyed it so much. And I do realize though that it goes against your hunting trips time as well. So I've been in that position where I'm like, well, maybe I shouldn't go, or I shouldn't worry about them going. I should just go by myself. But I don't know. It was never about going by myself. It was about going with family.
Yeah, I can see that. I would almost wonder, would it be, let's say that your family stops going, just for an example, would you want to continue to go to the same location if, like, say, me and Kaylin and other people were still interested in doing some sort of vacation? Or would you want to make a new tradition almost? Would it mean more to you to stay in the same tradition you keep doing now, even though your family's like, they gave it up? Or would you want to make a new one?
So this is going to sound weird, but that would be a very difficult decision that I think might actually require like soul searching, as silly as that sounds, because I have set foot physically in that location for almost 30 years. Like my body has physically been there, mentally been there, like whatever you want to say. You could add spiritually if you want, just like because of the environment or whatnot. And to not go there would, I don't know, I think something would be kind of lost or taken away in the very, very back of my mind. Could I go somewhere else? Absolutely, I could. I think if my family could not go, to answer your question, I think if my family could not go, I would probably go the first time, and I would think the entire time how like sad I am that family isn't there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I can see that.
I mean, well, let me turn around and pose the same question back to you. What if your dad could not go? What if Brandon didn't go? What if Matthew couldn't go? What if Dean or Jubal or Monty? Nobody went, just you.
That's kind of funny, because I asked that question in the same sense, like I'm pondering my own answer, what I would say, and I think it's similar. I feel like if nobody could go, or I guess I put it in a better answer, not if no one could go, because that has happened in the past. People just couldn't make it. It was just like my dad or something like that, and a lot of people stopped going because we had a full mountain several years ago, much like you guys had a full camp in the past with all the different people who used to come. And then people just slowly get to a point where they have other things they're doing, or they get busy, or they just can't make it, and that kind of thing happens. And we've lost quite a few people throughout our hunting camp that just don't come anymore. They just can't make it. It's just harder for them to do that, or what be. So, but I guess it would really come down to if they couldn't make it because they just couldn't make it that year, or if they just simply decided they don't want to do that anymore. Because that would probably be like the big changer, and it would actually come down to what else they were doing. Because I don't know how you would feel about this for the fishing trip wise, but let's say, like for me, with the same question you asked me, like if they said they weren't going to go on the hunting trip anymore, they weren't going to go up that mountain, but they were going to go to Montana and do a hunting trip there, and they were going to start a new tradition hunting there. I would probably, as sad as I would be to leave what we've hunted on for 3 generations, to leave that area growing up hunting there since I was a kid, and all the memories we have and all that kind of stuff, and all that kind of thing. It would be sad. I would be sad to leave that. But if they were starting a new tradition, the family, the hunting group we have now doing that, someplace else, or even if it wasn't a tradition, even if we just went hunting every year someplace else together. As long as we were together, I feel like I'd be okay with that. I'd be able to get over it relatively. I wouldn't call it easily, but I'd be able to get over it. I would probably think about going back there, and we probably would go back there. At some point, we probably would go back. But if it was the opposite spectrum of that, if they just straight up said, we weren't going to go hunting anymore, I would probably still go by myself. I would just go.
For how long?
As far as my brain works right now, continuously forever. I would just go every year.
See, I don't know. I don't know, because on one hand, I could do that. And in my mind, like, my first response is I would just go by myself. But I feel like after I'm going by myself, and it's different, like, having a wife and son, like, I would expect them to come with. Like, if they didn't come with either, then I'd really be like, why am I here by myself? Like, even if I was brought into this, even if I've done this for 30, 40, 50 years even, regardless of timeline, like, if my family's not there, then what is my purpose of going? It'd be hard to keep going, because I would actually think to myself the whole time I'm there of, like, moments that I've spent there with family, and it would bring me down. Like, it would honestly bring me down. And it was never really about, I take that back. When I was younger, it was about fishing. Like, it was about catching the biggest fish, or catching the monster of the lake, or just enjoying, like, nature, whatever. Like, that was the goal. But as you get older, like, it's more for the people. It's fun having, like, aunts and uncles, or, like, your parents or your sisters, brothers, whatever, there, and that really makes the experience. Maybe they kind of blend together after the years, but I'm sure you can remember one or two if you were stuck there by yourself, and you're like, oh, I'm never gonna see them again here, or something like that. That would make me stop. I honestly think that would probably make me stop, and I don't know how long I would hold out, but I think it would make me stop eventually.
I could see where you're coming from with that. I feel like they may be a little bit different, because my hunting trip, as much fun as we have as the group, we're still out there for a purpose of, like, the main purpose of harvesting an animal. If your fishing trip was the same, to where you went camping with everybody, but in the morning you just got up, had breakfast and went fishing all day long, either by yourself or, say, with one other person, to where you didn't really see each other that much, everybody went fishing, then you're really only seeing them in the evening, maybe for lunch in the morning, versus I feel like the fishing trip's main aspect is the time together. Like, that's why you're there, is to spend time together, is to spend time with the family. And like you said, it may have used to been about trying to catch the biggest fish, but it's really turned into the family time. And I'm not saying my hunting trip doesn't have that same feeling of family time, but it is really about the atmosphere, the being in the outdoors, watching the animals. Like, there's a lot more layers to it than just the family time. So what I would be losing by not going to the hunting trip anymore is the family time, but also the animals, the spending time in the outdoors, the seeing the vast wilderness and the amount of area there is out there. Just feel like an ant, basically, where it just feels so strange to see no civilization for miles and miles and miles, to where, if anything happened to you, basically be dead. But
you're like, if anything happened to me, I'd just be dead.
That feeling of being so small it's all kind of part of the experience. So I'm not trying to say the fishing trip is lame in any way because of that. It's how the fishing trip is kind of grown into. I feel like for you guys, it's a very big family thing, and so if your family just say, "Hey, I'm not going anymore," I feel like that would be a lot more tearing emotionally versus what you were missing out on than, say, if my family's like, "Hey, we're gonna have to go hunting there anymore. We're gonna hunt somewhere else." You know what I mean?
But
I would definitely miss the spot.
That is with the intention of them saying, "Hey, we're not going to hunt there anymore. We're going to hunt somewhere else." My question is if they stop hunting altogether, it's only you.
Yeah.
Would you still go?
That's,
and for
that's
how
what I'm
long?
gonna say. If they said, like I said, if they were gonna be like, we're not hunting here anymore, like we're not hunting period anymore. We're just done. We don't feel like going. I feel like the main thing that would probably hurt me most is the fact that they gave up. Not so much the fact that they don't want to hunt anymore. It almost feel more of they don't want to hunt you anymore. You know what I mean? Like it would feel more personal than just straight they don't have the time kind of thing.
Do you feel like it would be more like directed towards you if
I don't
they
feel like
didn't
they
have
would
time?
mean it that way if they decide that. You know, if my dad decided he didn't have time to go hunting anymore, or my brothers decided that they couldn't make it, which they have in the past, it never felt personal. But it still would feel like if all of them together were just like, like hunting was fun, but we don't really feel like doing it anymore. It would probably sting a little bit, knowing how much it means to me and how much I believe it would mean to them to just kind of give it up, you know.
As we get older, that is a very real scenario. I don't even know if you can say it's a possibility. It might just be like fact.
It's just when it happens, kind of thing.
Yeah, like it's not so much is it going to happen, it's when is it going to happen.
That is true. I think you're right about that because I mean, at a certain point, everybody loses interest in something, and I don't think we would. I don't think my family necessarily would lose interest in hunting. I just think they would. It just gets to a certain point where you either can't go anymore because it is a very hard hunt where we go, or there's just better places to go. That could also be a factor where they just the time they spent up there, the money they spent to go up there. If hunting got bad to where you just weren't getting anything anymore, I would still probably go. For me personally, just because I like being up there. But for somebody like, let's say Brandon's really, like, he wants to fill his freezer with meat, and he's spending so many $1,000s to just go on the trip, on top of the money you're not making at work, it would seem like a waste. I can understand that. It would seem like a waste. You're spending a lot of money to not fill your freezer. You could spend that same amount of money and go buy half a cow from a farmer and fill your freezer. You know what I mean? You don't have to risk not getting that meat, you know?
And Dean was saying that basically the reason why he doesn't go anymore is since he came out to North Dakota, maybe like a year or two before that, he's in a different state. And like he'd have to go back, which costs money, right?
Yeah.
And he said something about a hunting license over there, like when it's out of state, it's more expensive because he's got a North Dakota license now.
Yeah, everybody, like I said, it's one of those things where everybody has a breaking point. You know, everybody has their breaking point of what they are willing to do or go through to make something work. And Dean's happened to be a mix between time and money with his schedule that he has right now. And I'm making kind of an assumption with a little bit of feedback that I've had from him when I ask him questions. But the main assumption I get is, with his schedule, his 5 and 2, the amount of time he has to actually take off to make it back for not only the trip down there, because it's a long drive, but also the stay down there, and then if you happen to get something, you also need a little bit of time down there for it to be butchered, which takes anywhere from 3 to 5 days. It does take time. It takes time. It would be. I believe for him, the main reason why I stopped going was the amount of time he had to take off was basically, I think, most of his vacation time. And then on top of that, once he got his North Dakota residency, it was going to be like $500 or $600 to buy a tag back there. And when you're used to spending $40
plus the trip,
yes, exactly, and food and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, like I said, everybody has their breaking point. I have joked about and wholeheartedly say this with the truth. I would spend just about anything to reason. Like, just make whatever hunting trip you want to go on, what that would cost. I would still spend that much money on going back home and hunting my area where I hunt every year. And some people would find that completely ludicrous because some of these hunting trips, $3,000, $5,000, $6,000, and I'm not talking like the $10,000 crazy.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, like,
let's
what if it was 50 grand? It was 50 grand.
A realistic, let's say, out-of-state hunting tag where you would spend the $500 for the tag and be putting in for several years and all this kind of stuff, or if you went on a light guided hunt, which typically runs somewhere between $3,000 to $5,000. If you did something like that, if I was going to pay for another state, I would still pay the same amount of money to go hunt my location back home. I would do that every year, if it came down to that. And if it was literally every year, my opinion might change. But if it was just happened to be 1 year where they were like, oh, like, well, you have a North Dakota license now, it's going to be a $600 tag. I'd be like, okay.
That's what I was about to say. Is like, what if it was like 10 grand every year? Like,
yeah, no. If it was literally say even $5,000 a year, I would probably go the first year. I might even go the second year. But logically, you're
like, I gotta change. This is wrecking
the saving aspect in my brain would start kicking in, and I would start looking at the possibilities of other locations. Like, what am I? With the amount of money I'm spending, there's better options, And like I said before, I'd be very sad to lose my hunting grounds, but I also it is kind of a family thing. So if my family was going to also do, which we have already talked about with my dad moving out here.
What's the plan? What's the plan? So like he moves out here. What's your plan for this year's hunting season?
I actually haven't. It's funny. I just said we talked about it. We actually haven't talked about our hunting camp. We've actually talked about other locations.
Oh, really? So you're like not even gonna go back home?
No, it's not that. It was a lot of different areas have different hunting seasons. Well, obviously, but I mean different hunting seasons in different times. Like our hunting season is the last weekend of October. That's when it starts, and it goes for 9 days. So it goes usually a few days into November. Other states they have different hunting times. So Montana, they might start, say, at the beginning of October or something like that. So we're actually giving it more thought on. We could probably, if we look into it, find another location in another state that we could actually hunt on top of still going back home and hunting Washington.
Oh, that's ambitious. That's ambitious.
Montana's close enough now to where it's possible. Before, where you had to drive several hours to get to Montana, it wasn't really possible. But within 5 hours of what's it called? Custer's National Forest, I believe. It's doable. So that's what we actually brought up. But I was thinking about it in the grand terms of we've always really wanted to do an out-of-state hunt. We've talked about Wyoming. We've talked about Montana, Colorado. We've talked about a lot of these big bull areas that have a lot of great hunts that we've never really had the chance to do, mainly because we live in the corner of the state up there in Washington, and it's quite a drive to do anything else. Plus, money was always an issue, so there was that. But now, like living right here next to Montana, living within 5 to 10 hours, which is still a good jaunt, but doable. If you had some time off to go do some of these hunts and actually do some scouting trips and all this kind of stuff, we've been talking about it, where it's a possibility now. So we've kind of been looking into it already, which is funny because we hasn't even really had the news for more than a week now. But it's something that we've always wanted to do, and now it's kind of a possibility.
I predict that you are going to start doing trips like that rather than the one back home. I predict that it's going to become too much to go back home.
If I kind of think you're right. I kind of think you're right about that. I don't think it will be an instant kind of thing. I think it'll almost more come up as how it works out for a year, and because it worked out for that year, it'll just roll into the next year, and we'll continue to do whatever the new thing that we're going to go into. One of the biggest tethers that I have to Washington right now, though, is the special drawing system for big bull tags. I have been putting in since I started. I have somewhere between 12 and 13 years now of special permits.
Once that's gone, by the way, then you're good, right?
I think
feel
so.
Good.
Yeah. Once I have accomplished the goal I've set out for the last 13 years, I believe, in my mind, I really believe I will be okay with stepping out of that tradition. Not to the point where I don't ever want to go back there, but just to if the family moving out here decides that we're going to try to do a Montana hunt from now on, I'd be okay with that. But there's still this tether that I've got to Washington that I've been putting in for this tag for, like I said, 13 years, and I'm so close. Literally, if I wanted it the last 2 years, I probably could have had it, but I have gone out of the normal draw and put in for a harder draw because of the points that I have accumulated that I thought I had a better chance to get. So basically, the GMU we hunted, they give out, I believe they gave out 60 tags, 65 tags last year for big bulls. The percentage for the amount of people that applied, the average points they used, which you gain a point per year, was, I believe, 9. I have, I believe, 12 points. This next year I'll have 13 points. Or somewhere in there. I believe I missed a year, that's why I had less. But it's somewhere in there, 12 or 13. But I just going off that statistic, for the last several years, if I would have put in by myself, applying by myself for a big bull tag, for a single tag, I probably would have got it by now. I probably, last year or the year before that, I probably would have drew it, whatever. I probably would have gotten it.
Yeah.
The main reason I haven't is because you can also apply. You can apply as an individual for a single tag, but you can also apply as a group. And your group tags basically do an average of whoever has the lowest points versus whoever has the highest points. They split it in half. So, and then they round up if it's an odd number. So right now, I believe my dad has 6 points. 6, going on 7 this year, maybe. So we should.
Is that only? He doesn't have. I'm surprised. Is it because he got a big bull already?
Yes. So when you get drawn for a tag, you start at 0 again.
Okay.
So
I was going to say, I
swear
he'd have more. It would only make sense.
Yeah. No. He got drawn. Well, 5 or 6 years ago, whatever his tag points are up to now. But he was drawn several years ago. I believe he had 6 points when he was drawn. But I think the drawing scale back then was a little bit less. I think there was less people applying. But the main point is that I've been applying for this special group permit because I have noticed, like I said, it does take a long time. Sometimes it can take between, if you get lucky, you might get it in 4 or 5 years. Towards the longer end of, I think you max out at 15 points, just 15 years. But an average good guesstimate would say at least 8-ish years would be a rough estimate of how often you would draw this tag. So with my dad drawing it 6 years ago, 5 years ago, he has a chance to draw it again if we continue to go year after year. But after that, if you think another 6 to 10 years out, you start to get pretty old. No offense to my dad, but
Steve, cut that out. Cut that out, Steve.
Yeah, Steve. But so if you look at it that way, though, you only really have a limited number of draws in your lifespan. Statistically, looking at it logically, it's not that many. So in my mind, having the points that I had, the reason why I started applying for this group tag was that if I didn't apply for it now, let's say I was selfish, which I had every right to be, but if I decided to be selfish and I said I want my tag, I want to go hunt this tag, I could have done that, got my tag a year or 2 ago or whatever, went and got my big bull, and I could have started at 0, and then we could have all talked as a group, go into a big group tag. Problem is, because of the average draw that you get, with my with one of my brothers only having 3 points, my dad only having 5, I believe, points last year. The average to get the possibility as a group, because it's a lot harder to get drawn as a group, would be roughly another 10 years before we even had a chance. And in my mind, with having 13 points, 12 points last year, I up our average by 4 years. So your 8 to 10 year push out of when you even have a chance to start drawing this tag was cut in half just by me not being selfish. So I really thought it'd be a blast. I really thought it'd be a lot of fun to have a big group bull tag where everybody had a big bull tag where we'd all be hunting big bulls and having this great opportunity to everybody harvest a big bull. It would make great memories and great photos. It would just be a blast. So that's what I really want to do. So that's why I've been putting in for. That's why I have this tether to Washington still. Is I have not gotten that yet. And I will probably continue to go. And I will probably make at least my dad go. And my siblings can't make it. That's up to them. But I'm going to drag my dad out there every year until we get this done.
Even if I have to pack him along with everything else.
I'll pack him up there. Well, I'll be a road hunter if I have to, man. We're going up there though. We're gonna be hunting. But yeah, that's after that. It's be a good question. I don't know. After that, I feel like the main goal I've had for the last 10 years will be accomplished. I would miss it greatly, and I would definitely come back and visit it up there. I would definitely go hunting up there at some point in the future if we stopped hunting up there. But I would probably be okay looking for a new location, just temporarily because we're out here. You know what I mean?
I would like to go at least once. It just has not fallen into place.
Yeah, I would. Well, I think what our goal for this year, we haven't really talked about it much, but just like thinking about it logically, with his new job, the time he's going to have off, it is possible. For the time I will have off as well, because I'm taking time for the fishing trip, I'm not going to have that much. We could probably make it back logically for half of the season, and then a little bit into after the season to get work done if we got something. I would be fine with doing that. I don't know if he's going to want to do that or not. I would probably be okay with doing that. We'll have to kind of play it out, see what happens. But I've also kind of chalked up this year, which is the very first time I've ever done this in my life, that I'm just not going to go this year. Not because I don't want to go, but just because of the other things that are important that's going on this year. And my main goal is actually not to even apply, because you can apply for the tag or you can apply for what they call a ghost permit, which basically gives you the point for the year. You still pay for the tag, and you get your point for the year, but you do not actually get put into the pool for drawing.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It just gives you a point. You don't get a chance to get drawn, so you don't waste any of your points. Because if you don't have a plan for going for that year, but you still want your point, you can put in for a ghost permit. So that's kind of my goal. I was going to put in for a ghost permit this year, get my point for the year, and then next year, 2020, I was gonna put in for the group permit. And I actually think that's going to be the best year. Something that you probably don't know, and I may have mentioned before, so maybe you do or maybe you don't, but just with the natural calendar movement, that like weekends will slowly shift,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So like a weekend on the last weekend of October for last year isn't going to be the same date set up as the weekend for this next last weekend of October, and how the calendar works for the hunting seasons is really I believe it's every 7 years. It shifts again. So it'll gradually actually climb backwards. So it'll actually go backwards a day for 7 years, to where towards the end of that 7-year span, our hunting day, our last weekend of October, is actually close to six plus days in October before we roll into November. Like you actually have 6 days in October still after the last weekend of October, or somewhere in there.
What does that mean? Like for you?
Basically, it's very complicated in the scheme of like trying to like connect all these dots. But if you think about it in like a big map form, you have your dates that you are hunting, right? And that they're set. It's the last week of October every year. But temperature-wise, what the atmosphere is doing, what the elk are doing, all get kind of decided on the weather. The dates on our calendar don't really change the weather.
Yeah, I suppose so. I suppose not.
So, in that sense, the further in October we get, the further that the hunting season gets pushed back in October, the less, I would just say, likelihood of bad weather we are going to have. The further in October, the warmer it's still going to be. We're closer to the summer, the further back it gets. And it may just be like, well, that's silly, that's goofy. You're talking about 7 days, 6 days, 5 days potentially of being pushed back. 5 days make a world of difference, dude. Like when you've been hunting up there long enough, it's hilarious how accurate it is to where you get to that last weekend of hunting season and you look at the forecast and literally 3 days after hunting season ends, we have a heavy snow coming. It's so laughable because it's so accurate. It feels like almost every year you're hoping for heavy snow, you're hoping for nasty weather to get the elk moving out of the backcountry. And you get to that last couple of days of hunting season, you check the forecast, and it's right there on the edge, dude. You're so close to it. It's like, oh man, if hunting season was just a couple of days longer, we would have been in that nasty weather. So the thing that changes that, which seems so very small and minute by going back 1 day every year, is when you start getting towards the end of that 7-year span, where you're getting towards the peak of the time frame. So once you hit that 7 years, though, or around there, I may be off by a year. Once you hit that time frame where it jumps forward again, 2020 is actually going to jump forward far enough to where I believe our last weekend of hunting season is going to be like within 2 or 3 days of November. So it pushes that season out into November. Like normally, like this year, we stopped. Hunting season ended, I believe, the 3rd of November. Next year, the last weekend of October is literally Halloween. It's the last day of October.
So you're gonna get that snow, is what you're saying.
Basically, it's not a guarantee, but basically, instead of going home, say, the 3rd of November, our hunting season actually gets pushed out until like the 8th or 9th of November. So you get almost a week extra. It feels like it. You feel like you've got a week longer in like push forward into November versus starting earlier in October. So your chances of the bad weather are a lot more. You're further in the year hunting. So anyway, that's the kind of complicated like bouncing back and forth of how our hunting season dash weather dash all that calendar crap goes. But so basically, the point is 2020. the point
2020.
is 2020 is gonna be probably, if you look at it logically, of how the hunting seasons have gone, how we've statistically looked at things, how the weather plays a part. 2020 should be a great elk season. Just looking at it on paper, it should be a great elk season. Not the weather may not play right, and it may be super warm all the way through November. Who knows? And it may suck, or it may get really nasty in the middle of October, and all the elk get pushed out of the high country. You don't see a single thing.
Dude, this is a lot of maybes. Holy crap!
It could go either way, but statistically looking at it, 2020 is setting up to be a great year. So my goal has been putting ghost prints this year, and just go hard starting 2020, and hope we get drawn for that tag. Within the first year or two, because you're closer, you're further into the year, you have better chances of bad weather, bad snow, which is going to help hunting season out a lot. So my point for all of this, getting down to the wire, is 2020, Brown. 2020, you got to come.
2020. Oh, I mean, talking this much in advance, it really helps. Not having it dropped on me last minute. Yeah. So yeah, no, I could definitely plan for that. And I have more vacation than you guys do as well. So
yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's 5 days, but it's 5 days. So
it's 5 days, even a couple days can make or break a trip.
But I wouldn't want to go up there and then leave halfway through and you guys still be up there and be like, Bye, guys.
Oh, yeah. No, I want you there for the whole experience. I want you there for the pack up there. I want you there for the pack down. And hopefully, my main goal when you come up is to have you there for a harvest of some kind, because that in itself is an experience. Not only just the work it takes to pack out an animal, but also the camaraderie of doing it all, the butchering process, the big dinner we have that night with all the fresh meat. Like it's a whole party basically at what it feels like once you get that celebration and you have the on the mountain party. It's a blast, and it's something that I feel like you can't really share with anybody unless they are actually part of it.
I could see myself like rushing over to the dropped elk and just like
oh yeah,
throwing my body over and be like, mine, my kill, raw, like caveman style, like raw, like get the hell out of my way, Steve, go pack something.
Yeah. No, it's a blast, and like for me. When I was younger, like when somebody got something, I wanted to be there. Like I wanted to go wherever they were at so I could go like just help out, because the harvesting part of it was your goal for the season. Like that was why you were there, and you may not even have a chance to do that. So I wanted to be a part of somebody else's. Like it didn't matter if they wasted a whole day of hunting for me. It was the atmosphere, the camaraderie of helping out. Helping them pack it out, like it just was a whole thing of why we're up there, and I really also liked seeing the animals. Like it sounds silly to talk about like dead animal at that point, but it's something that I wanted to be a part of. Like that's why you're there. That's why you're hunting. So yeah, it's like that for me even now. When somebody gets something, I want to be there, unless it's Top Camp.
Why is Top Camp so different compared to the others?
It's another one of those things, man, that you're gonna have to see it for yourself. Okay. I will explain it, but it's not gonna be near as impactful until you experience that hike.
Well, maybe we'll save that for the next one. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like I think both trips are good. I really want to go hunting in your guys' trip. Like I truly do. Like I really do.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of like, oh, like he won't be able to cut it and all this. I'm just like, oh my god. I'm like, oh my gosh. If there's anything you could say to get me there quicker, that would be that kind of bull crap. But anyways,
we just give you a hard time, man. I know you're gonna be fine. It's just one of those things where you don't. When you put in all that effort, like it's not only a thing about like trying to get the person like mentally like prepared for something like you do out here in North Dakota, but also like trying to give your own self some credit. Like it is a hard hunt. We don't do the kind of hunting that a lot of people do. It's different. Most people don't do this kind of hunting because it's something that you almost kind of have to be born into. Not because it's difficult in that way, but because finding spots like this, that kind of thing, it's if you picture like you right now, if you're like, I want to go elk hunting, but you didn't know any of us, you didn't know anybody that went elk hunting per se. It's difficult to know where to do, to know what to do, where to go. Like it's difficult. And then if you do by a miracle happen to get all that through, well, once you get an animal down, the actual taking care of the animal process, you're talking about a 400, 500 pound animal, taking care of it is a whole other topic. It doesn't matter how much research you did, getting in there with your own two hands, it's different, so, it's just one of those things where we try to like kind of psych you up for it, talk a little bit of smack to get you.
Man, I don't even need my gun. I will karate chop that up. And I won't even like I'll gut it and all that good stuff. But like I won't even need to pack it. We will have Steve by then, and I will just be like, Steve, pack it up, Steve, pack it up.
Yeah, we could totally do these podcasts at hunting camp too. We've all joked about it, and I actually listened to several podcasts that are in this kind of hunting camp situation scenario, and I think they're great. So I think that'd be a blast.
I think so too, and we're gonna have to start. We have to start like beginning the recording and ending recording. Like, this is Tan&Dan, another podcast from like wherever we are at that time.
Yeah,
And we're like,
we're gonna have to
and
really
here's
come up with
Steve.
an intro and outro. That's gonna be great.
And we'll be like, and
figure it all
here's
out
Steve
slowly.
again, and we don't care about him, but he's here. He's here.
Yeah.
You know, gotta make sure he's included.
Yeah.
So, and with that, I'm going to end the cast for today, and we will have to edit it and make it look beautiful and pretty, and probably, I don't know if you've heard, but I've shifted my butt about 10 times. My chair's just like, yeah, so we'll have to...
Yeah.
Steve,
Right,
cut that out!
Cut that out, Steve.
Okay.